Alex, how long have you been doing the Feldenkrais method for?
Let's see. I think I was introduced to it when I was 25. No, 24. And I'm 32 now, so 8 years. Um, and it was interesting because I learned about it. I was in my early 20s very interested in all kinds of different modalities, and I was taking like craniosacral therapy workshops and um, decided I wanted to like search locally for a mentor in my area. I'm in New Mexico and near Santa Fe. And I found this guy, and it said on the website that he did mentorship. So I reached out to him, and he told me after one meeting, he was like, I think you would really like this thing called Feldenkrais. And I was like, okay, I'd actually heard of it before because I had done a yoga teacher training when I was 22. And the guy I studied with kind of lifted a lot of things from the Feldenkrais method to use as like warm-ups for yoga. Um, so I knew the name was familiar to me. So yeah, when he mentioned it, this mentor, craniosacral mentor, I was like, oh, the name sounds familiar. And he said, there's a young woman in town who is a practitioner. I think you would really connect with her. And I think as we know, it's rare to find younger people in the work. It's like most of the big Feldenkrais people are of the boomer generation. And so it was like, wow, like I'm 24 and here's this like 27 or 28-year-old Feldenkrais practitioner, and he connected us, and I started going to her classes, and I was just like blown away.
Mm.
And that was my first introduction to it. How about you?
Hmm. Um, my first introduction, so I studied I studied a lot of things at UC San Diego, but one of the things I studied was dance, and we had a substitute dance teacher who like wasn't on the faculty come in. She was a local dancer, and she was also a Feldenkrais practitioner. Mary Reich, I think her name was. And so she taught us this class that I think had some elements of Feldenkrais in it. But then at the end, she had us doing like, instead of going across the floor, like kind of in the normal way we would like at the end of the dance class, she had us doing like all these kind of weird types of like reptilian crawls. So she had us crawl
Mm.
contralaterally and homolaterally, and I just remember like afterwards, my inner thighs were so sore. It was so sore. But it also was like, yeah, I don't know, it's just interesting. And it was like a different take. And she was kind of talking more about like the evolution of movement, and it definitely got my body moving in ways that I wasn't used to. So I thought it was kind of interesting, but I didn't really think more of it until, let's see, fast forward maybe like 10 years, about 10 years. And we'll rewind just a little bit. Right when after I graduated from college, I was taking a dance class, and I hadn't been dancing all summer, and I just kind of hopped back in, and I ended up injuring my hip really badly. Uh,
Mm.
and I'd always in the past, like if I had injuries, like I used to sprain my ankle all the time, or I had a hamstring that I would kind of tear a little bit. And it would always like, I could just kind of like walk it off, and, it would heal eventually, maybe not completely back to normal, but enough that I could continue doing the things that I love doing. And
Mm.
this one was different. I like could barely walk. It felt like every single time I took a step, like my like the head of my femur, or the top of my leg was like gonna pop out of my hip joint.
Mm.
It was bad.
Brutal.
It was brutal. It like was like I couldn't get in and out of the shower because like I'd have or without like lifting my leg like with my hands. Like I couldn't like just lift my leg. It was so weird. Still having to go to work, still like having to drive a stick shift. Like it was
Mm.
there, it was it was a rough year. And my because I just graduated from college, at that point you couldn't stay on your parents' health insurance once you graduated from college. Like I think they I think with Obama they made it so you could stay on it until you were like 26 or something. Um,
Hmm.
and so I didn't have health insurance, and I went to like the local chiropractor that the dancer saw, and got like a little bit of a treatment, but honestly, it was like such a bad injury. I think there was just kind of nothing that they could really do for it. And so I spent, um, yeah, then I think I spent like the next probably 7 years like trying to well, I got super depressed because I couldn't really move anymore and do things that I love doing. And I tried lots of different things, and I would often just kind of re-injure myself or make it worse. So I just lived with a lot of pain for a long time. And then eventually we moved up to the Bay Area, and we weren't living in San Francisco, but in San Francisco there's a big dance school called ODC, and I noticed that there was actually no, how did it? Sorry, my chronology is a little bit off. For some reason, the Feldenkrais method just like stayed in my head, I guess, is something that I should maybe try. And so I actually, once we moved up to the Bay Area, I looked and saw that there was a Feldenkrais Center in Berkeley, which at the time was where like David, I don't know if David Zemek Berson was still there, but Elizabeth Barringer was still teaching there. And so I came up and I took a class, and um, it was like we were in this room that had carpet, and I arrive, and they say like, okay, we'll grab a mat, and I was like, oh, I don't need a mat. Like I'm a dancer, and the kind of dance I did, we did a lot of floor work, and so I'm like, I just like being directly like on the bare floor. I don't need a mat. And they were like, okay. So I just like laid down directly on the floor, and we did this lesson in sideline where you would like kind of like have one leg, and you'd maybe like draw it up a little bit and then take it back down, and then you'd slide your head down to like meet your knee and then come back up. And she kept saying like do it with the minimal amount of effort, like the least amount of effort. And so I was like,
Hmm.
okay. So I kept just like reducing my effort, reducing my effort. And what it meant is that I was just like dragging my cheek like on the carpet. I just like gave myself like the worst carpet burn on my cheek. I know, and I just was like, I'm like, this is so weird. Like people like doing this. I was like, I don't get it. Um, I still like for some reason I was like, but I think there's something here. So I bought a cassette, like the set that they had, and it was like Introduction to Awareness and Movement, like
Oh
eight
my
lessons
god.
with David Zemek Berson and Elizabeth Barringer. I took it home, like
On a tape?
yeah, they were on cassettes. They were
That's
like
great.
each like side A had one lesson, side B had two
Oh
lessons.
my gosh. When I joined, it was CDs.
Oh, okay. Yeah. See, I'm a little older than Alex. But I took it home, and it was quite a drive to get up there. So I knew I wasn't going to do weekly classes, but I took the tapes home, and I would like set myself up like to do a lesson, and put a little bit more padding on the floor and covered myself with a blanket, and I would just fall asleep. Like I'd put the audio recorder
Yes.
and just fall asleep. Like that's it.
I love that.
So,
I
yeah.
love falling asleep.
I know.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. Or do you have more to that
But
end?
go, please. Yeah, I can share more later. That was already a lot.
No, it's good. I was interested. It's interesting because you shared kind of like your intro and then how you kind of came back to it. And I have like a similar thing where I came back to like I found this woman who was close to my age and it was cool and I went to some of her classes and then I moved to North
Mm.
Carolina and I went to acupuncture school, and I couldn't sit. Like I, for some reason, like I don't know what was going on with me, but I could not sit. Like it hurt me to sit. My pelvis, like I'm not sure if it was my hip. I think there were some like vaguely sciatic feelings happening, but like it was just like a problem. And they were like, well, you can sit on a bouncy ball or you can get like a disability form and like stand. And I was just like, this is crazy.
Yeah.
And I was doing a lot of yoga at the time, and I have a lot of kind of mixed feelings about yoga. I was very into it in my like teens and early 20s, and did a teacher training and all of that. But I found I'm very flexible, and I found that it kind of made a lot of existing problems I had worse. And so I was doing a lot of yoga in North Carolina, and then I was like, wait, what was that thing? Feldenkrais. And so I looked it up, and there's a pretty like prominent teacher near where I was. I think Lavinia Plonker is her name or something.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
So I started going to her classes, and I was just like, oh my God, I feel so much better from this and not from yoga. And then I found out about like the Open ATM website. So I started doing stuff at home from that. And then there were various other reasons I became like extremely unhappy in North Carolina, and I ended up dropping out of school. And I drove, and I was going to drive to California from North Carolina, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to stop in New Mexico because I love New Mexico. And on my like first day back in New Mexico, I was just like, I'm just gonna like chill and stay here for like a week, and then I'll go to California. I dropped in on that young woman, Ashley Rowe is her name, Feldenkrais class, and I was like, this feels so good. It's so good to be here. And I was like, I dropped out of school. I don't know what I'm doing with my life, but like, this is one of the only things that I like. This is one of the only yeses I have right now. Everything else is like, no. And this is like, yes. And she was like, Alex, this is kind of crazy, but my trainer has a new training and they're starting next week.
Oh,
and
wow.
I was like, like, what does that mean? Like, what do I do? Like, and she was just like, how about we go together, like to the first day and just talk to her, Diana Razumny, talk to her and see if it seems like a good fit. But she's just like, I don't want to like persuade you either way, but I just think it would really be good for you. And I was like, when things like that in life happen, I'm just kind of like, yeah, like these are such clear things. And I feel like I can get kind of caught in ambiguity a lot. And so when things that are very like, I don't know, synchronistic or kind of like feels like you're seeing like a roadmap or like a signpost or something, I'm always like, yes, like obviously I'm going to follow this. And so I joined that training and that's, and I never had that weird problem after the first two segments, so just 6 weeks of training. I never had a problem sitting again, and I never had that weird pain in my pelvis that I couldn't handle sitting in acupuncture school. I couldn't tell you what happened, but that's what happened.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I feel like sometimes it does work that way, you know? Like you can't necessarily track what happened, but it does get better, which I think can sometimes be hard for people who are joining because like they want, you know, we're so used to trying to like analyze and understand like the thing that happened, but I feel like part of what Feldenkrais does is I feel like he kind of understood the way that like the brain and our body communicate in movement. And so so much of like the language that we use and the questions that we ask and the sequence of movements, like it helps our brain and our body communicate better. And so the kind of, I don't know, like the prefrontal cortex might not like understand what's going on, but like deeper structures in the body do. And that's like where I don't know, that's where the relief comes from or the benefit comes from.
Mm-hmm.
and why sometimes people can be so surprised. Like I had a pain in my shoulder, but someone worked with my pelvis and then it felt better, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a side comment, but I always like that because
Mhm.
I feel like I personally can get into trouble just like well, I think this happens within like, having some sort of maladies or illnesses or pains. Like you want to know exactly why and what and how and like, oh, I can do this thing. Like it's kind of like we were talking about last time with like, you get expectations of like, oh, this is going to feel so great or this is going to do
Oh,
this for me. Or last time I did this lesson, it relieved this huge like tension
yes,
I was experiencing in my ribs or something like that. So this time I'm going to do it and I'm going to get that same amazing relief. And
yes,
it's like, I think that's so dangerous and can get in the way of our learning or healing or whatever you want to call it. And so I've I've come to really love the inexplicableness of relief or whatever it is. Because yeah, I think it just can be problematic when we want the thing to do the thing.
totally. Yeah. I feel like it's like, I don't know, like I have a kind of intention or attention sometimes that can be really like interrogating. And so it's
Mm-hmm.
like I shine like the bright spotlight, right, on the issue.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like interrogating it and trying to get it, like,
Mm-hmm.
like tell me what's going on so I can like, get in there and fix it. But that's
Mm-hmm.
not really, I mean, I guess some things respond positively to that, but I think a lot of things don't. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and Elena says, like, you have to let the lesson organize you
Mm.
instead of trying to use the lesson to like organize something specific.
Huh. That's nice.
Yeah, I think so too.
I
Yeah.
remember one of the first times you and I connected where we were talking about like when you're like thinking really like focusing really hard on the lesson and you feel this like tension in between your eyes or something.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
what I was thinking when you were saying that. It's like I can feel the
Yes.
tension in my eyes.
Totally. Yeah. Well, because I find like my eyes really follow my attention, right? So like
Yeah, me
if
too.
I'm like, yeah, if they're like, notice your feet, I find my eyes are like right down there as if
Looking down.
Oh, okay. I want to go back a little bit because you said something that
Mhm.
was really similar to my experience. And that's kind of um yeah, when you had dropped out of acupuncture school and then you ended up joining a training.
Mhm.
um I
Feldenkrais crisis for dropouts.
Golden Graces for dropouts because yeah, that was my experience too. I eventually we moved up to San Francisco because I was entering like a film MFA program up here, and I found out that there was a Feldenkrais class at ODC, which is a big dance school here, taught by Augusta Moore, who was also like a ballerina in the San Francisco Ballet, and she directed the ballet program at ODC and then taught these Feldenkrais classes. And so I started going to those, and it was like I know I would still like hurt myself doing the movements, but
Mhm.
or just being on that hard floor or being in uncomfortable positions like we talked about. But I felt like it was the first time I was really given like time and space and like permission to just sense what it was that I was doing. So I could at least start to sense how it was that I was hurting myself because like I would
Mm.
maybe be in like a normal dance class and I would hurt myself, but there like wasn't time, you'd just try to get
Mm.
on with like doing the steps, or you were just searching for that like feeling of like liberation that I found when I was dancing, or all these other things. But Feldenkrais, it was really
Mm.
like, no, let's just like sense into like what it is that I'm doing and take your time and if anything, like stop thinking about doing the movement, like just let that go and just search for like what actually feels pleasurable,
Mm.
which was a real, I don't think I could do that at first, but it was just a different kind of invitation, I think, than I'd ever experienced before. And so
Mm.
at the same time, I was also like trying to become a filmmaker, and yeah, it was not the program wasn't what I it was going through some changes, and it wasn't what I had thought that I was signing up for. And I basically had like yeah, I was having like a mental breakdown, and I remember being like outside at a cafe eating dinner with Eric, and him asking me questions, and I just felt like I couldn't answer any of them. Like I was like,
Mm,
I don't know. Like, and he was trying to be helpful, but it just was like I just I don't know. I think my system was so overwhelmed and just shut down that it didn't know. And the only thing I knew was like I could look at my hand and be like, okay, I'm pretty sure this is my hand, right? Like, and I'm
mm-hmm,
pretty sure this is my knees,
mm,
right? Like that's
mm-hmm,
like where I was at. And so
mm-hmm,
I a few other things happened and I ended up dropping out of the program. But I felt like when I went to a Feldenkrais class, like that's all that was being asked of me, right? Like I could
mm-hmm.
go up super depressed, like, and just lie down on the floor, keep my eyes closed. I didn't have to like have any social interactions. And they could just ask me these really simple, basic questions. Um, and that was, yeah, I don't know. It's like it just allowed me to stay in relation with myself when I was in like a really um, yeah, I was gonna say bad place, but I don't quite like that word. But when I was just in that like shut down place.
Mm-hmm. There's something about those questions, like I'm
Yeah.
kind of like, what is it about those? Like, there's some way in which focusing on, and I guess a lot of kind of meditative modalities are
Yeah.
kind of honed in on this, but there's something about focusing on somatic sensations that feels very clarifying. And
Yeah.
I'm almost like something about feeling like it's in your purview of like, I don't want to say control, but like, because it's
Mm.
like when someone's asking you broader questions, even about maybe how you're feeling emotionally or like what's going on in your life, it can be really nebulous and overwhelming. But like when someone's asking you, well, like, what is the sensation in your big toe? It's like, well, that's clear. Like, and
Yeah.
even if it's not clear, it's like, well, I can put my attention there.
Yes.
It doesn't feel I don't know how to unpack that, but it's just like it doesn't feel as daunting of a task.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think that's what the method, like one of the things the method really has right, um, is that we focus on the sensations in the body. And um, I'm not sure, not a neuroscientist or any of the, I'm not up to speed on all of that sort of research and um all of that, but um
I think,
I just wanted to point to that, I guess.
yeah, no, I'm glad you did. I mean, one thing I think is like it's all of the other stuff involves like a fair amount of abstraction.
Okay, yeah.
And so that's like that's part of what at least I can get lost in that
It's not
sometimes.
grounded.
Yeah, it's not grounded. But when I think about the neuroscience thing, and I think what I was saying earlier about like this kind of communication, like sometimes I feel like Feldenkrais is like couples counseling for like you and your body.
I
And that
like
it
that.
can also be like you're also in like a polyamorous relationship because like definitely feels like there's many parts in there. At least
Uh-huh.
it's my experience, or many different characters. Um, but I haven't studied it a lot, but I've studied like, some like anatomy and physiology and all that. And I think about the receptors that we have at our in our nerve endings, and they're ones for like pressure, right? And so
hmm
we often ask like, do you feel more contact or less contact with the floor, like in a certain area? And that's like pressure receptors. There's also ones for temperature, right? So we talk about that a little bit.
hmm
Um, there's pain receptors, right? Which I think we acknowledge, but we try not to give too much attention to because pain can be so bright and loud, and sometimes it
mm.
hijack your system. So I don't think we have to like totally deny it or ignore it, but it can be nice to like shift our attention sometimes to these like more quieter things.
Okay. That's like, you don't want to give too much attention to the pain because it's like feeding it in a way. Like
That's
it's already so loud, and the more you put attention on it, the more you feel it being loud, and the more you feel it being loud, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, some people talk about that, yeah, like the cycle can, yeah, exactly, just like that. I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of research about pain, and I still do feel though that like if you're feeling pain, I mean, I often think it's because there is something going on, you know? But
Mm-hmm.
I don't. I mean, I guess in some situations, um, yeah, it's like a phantom limb or something, right? It's like
Mm-hmm.
you know, there isn't really something there. But I still feel like it's usually good to address the pain and not like totally ignore it. Like it's a signal that something's going wrong. Um, but then I also know, you know, for some people who have like a huge amount of chronic pain, like they find that they just if they do that, then their life becomes so small, right? So
Mm-hmm.
they want to go ahead and go out and live their life, and which I think is totally like a fair choice for them, but that's hasn't been my experience with my body. Um, I don't know, my body responds pretty well to me giving attention to the thing that's in pain.
To the pain. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I've had that experience, but I've also had like when giving attention to parts not in pain. I mean, I've heard that in like the new agey community, they call that like resourcing or something. Like it's like if you have a stomach ache and they're like, focus on the part of your body that doesn't feel pain, and like
Right.
that can be helpful too. But I've had both experiences, so I don't know. It
Yeah.
probably depends.
Yeah, I think that's probably true. But I like still feel like the thing is that it's nice to be in a modality where you get to figure that out. Do you know what I mean? Like you get to figure out, okay, and it's not like you always get it right, but that depends thing. Like you get to figure out, okay, well, like what does it depend on, right? Like when
Mm-hmm,
there are
mm-hmm.
instances when this was helpful, when was it not helpful? And I think if anything, that kind of like questioning for me, I think it's helpful, but then ultimately I want it to just like guide my intuition or inform my intuition,
Mm-hmm.
right? Where then you don't always have to think about it and like make like a I don't know, like make a pros and cons list or have like a discussion about it, but you can just be like, okay, which thing do you think is better to do now? Is it better for me to give attention to the pain or give attention to something else? And then like the choice you make is without deliberation is like you know, the I'm struggling with words. I'm like the right choice? No, it's not the right choice, but I don't know.
It's a choice.
A choice. It's a choice. Usually the thing that you want. Yeah, the result that you want. Maybe. Sorry,
Also,
see, we're
like,
starting to get into abstraction. This is where I start to
yeah, this
get
is where we
excited.
start to to lose it. No.
What's
Um no, it's hard. Yeah. I We can also like make both choices.
say more.
Like I'm going to try out like focusing on the pain for a little bit, and then if it feels like I that's good, then great, but if it feels like I want to try something different, like could do that too.
Yeah, totally.
But
Yeah.
um what's this? We need the secret third thing.
That's right.
We,
Yeah. It
there's
doesn't have
got
to
to
be
be more than
binary.
two options here.
Yes, absolutely. Well, oh yeah, I don't know. I mean, the nice thing about a Feldenkrais lesson is that the teacher, you can always just choose to just listen to them and just follow whatever they're saying.
Yeah, that's that's a great third choice.
Mm.
That is a great third choice.
Mhm.
I like that too, because sometimes it's nice to just be told what to do, honestly, and
Yes.
not have to think about it and not have to be like, what would be the best thing? Like,
Yes.
that can be sort of exhausting, I think.
Oh my God, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, it really can be. I agree.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's a lot of pressure to be making decisions all the time.
Decision fatigue. I mean, that's a thing,
Oh,
you know?
this is a term.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Hmm,
a term.
interesting.
Yeah, and that's like why yeah, people are by the end of the day, they usually have more decision fatigue than the beginning of the day.
Huh.
And it's why sometimes like our it's
I'd be
hard.
waking up with decision fatigue.
Yeah.
I'm having decision fatigue in my dreams. Sorry.
No, it's okay. I'm sure that's a thing too. Yeah.
Yeah, it's plaguing me at all hours of the day.
Hmm. Well, that was, yeah, that was helpful to learn about. I don't think I knew all that about your, yeah, your first experiences and what got you
Yeah.
into the Feldenkrais method.
Yeah, it was very just it was very fluid. It was very seamless in a way. I mean, it wasn't because I moved across the country and did all these things, but it just made sense at the time. And I think I like how we both kind of resonate and like share the same experience of like everything else was like
Yeah.
so like either so overwhelming or so much like, no, I can't, I don't want to, or I can't do that. And then like Feldenkrais just became this thing that was like, yes, like it's like nutrition in a way. Like it's like this is feeding me and that is clear. And like
Mhm.
when you've like tasted something that's like real food and giving you nutrients you need, it's kind of like, oh. Um
Mm.
and yeah, everything else felt like noise to me. And this felt like very like I wasn't sure. I was like, I don't know if I want to do this. I don't know if I want to be this, but like I need it at the
Yeah.
moment.
Yeah, I didn't think I was going to be a practitioner, but I felt like I was like, oh, I think this is the only thing I can do right now. That's
Yeah, that's same.
that's what I felt. Yeah, so it's which, a lot of people who come to
If you're
film,
desperate. No.
they are, yeah, seriously. I mean, I know that word, we have so many negative connotations with it, but like
Yeah, but it's real.
it's real. Yeah, it's real. And it's nice to have like a place you can go when you're feeling that way, you know?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I definitely a lot of like clients who show up, they've tried everything, and
Mm-hmm.
they are like desperate because it's not for lack of trying, like
Yep.
it's not like they neglected themselves. Like they're trying to take care of it, but they just can't find anything that actually helps.
Mm-hmm.
So I just think
Yeah.
that's something really common to most of us who do it.
Yeah, I agree. And I think we should give a few words about
Mm.
because you were saying, I felt like I could go lie on my back and do that. I think we should talk about lying on your back
Oh,
a little bit. Because
yeah.
when I was in my training, it was like, I was like, we start to practice the functional integration, the like one-on-one bodywork sessions with each other. And in the beginning, none of us really were like, what are we doing? Like,
Yeah.
um, and still in the beginning, like with no experience, like no feel for what we're doing, like people will get up and be like, wow, I feel really great. And I used to be like, I bet it's because they just got to lie down for
Yeah.
45 minutes. Like,
Yeah.
I bet,
Yeah.
I wonder if it has to do with anything else. But,
No, that's
um,
Elizabeth Berenger has said that too.
okay, okay.
Yes.
Not
Yeah.
original there.
Oh, well,
Um,
I didn't. Yeah, or I was just more thinking like, yeah, I think you're onto
Or
something.
we're on the same wavelength.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's like I think that's huge. And I mean, obviously, you go to acupuncture, you go to a massage therapist, you go whatever
Mm,
to some sort of healer. You're gonna get that experience too of like laying down for that amount of time. But I think that's a big deal.
yeah, I do too. And getting to do it socially.
Yeah. Yes. That is a huge part of
Yeah.
awareness through movement.
Like how often do you come together as a group of people to like lie down? You know?
Right.
Like I guess when we were kids, we would have like nap time would be that.
Yes.
But like,
Yes.
yeah, we don't really do it as adults, at least not in our culture, right? I mean, there are some
Yeah.
cultures that eat like reclining, and on the
Uh-huh.
floor and or listen to music concerts that way.
Uh-huh.
But it's rare, yeah, that we do that.
Yes. And
I want to say there is less than a minute, just so you know.
okay.
That wasn't much of a,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, I was just gonna say like also like the format of a training too, which I thought was brilliant, is that like you're allowed to do whatever you want. Like in most
Mhm.
school and learning settings, like you are expected to sit still or you're expected to all kind of conform to the same thing. And when you're in a training, like if you want to
Yeah.
lie down, you can lie down. If you want to have a snack, you can have a snack. If you want to leave and go for a walk, you can do that.
Yes.
And it's like
Yep.
that having that freedom of like and kind of autonomy over your own
Yep.
body and what you're feeling, it's massive. And it having that level of comfort, it just opens up a whole new.
All right. So we are back. Sorry, we're still using the free version. So like you got cut off there, but you were just talking about how unique a Feldenkrais training program is and the autonomy that we're allowed to have.
Yes. um yeah, the I was just saying, well, we were talking about like the importance of lying on your back, and then
Right.
I was saying it makes such a difference to learning like when we're in training because um we have free reign over like what we want to do. So it's I was saying in most learning environments you are expected to sit a certain way or be still or be have a set of behaviors that are kosher or not kosher. And um in Feldenkrais it's really like your comfort takes precedence. And so it's like the idea is like if you're not comfortable, you're not going to be learning optimally. Which I think is a great uh I was gonna say idea, but I'm like it's a great fact. um but
Yes.
yeah, like we can lie down if we want to lie down, you can take a nap if you want to take a nap, you can have a snack, you can get up and go to the bathroom, you can take a walk, like anything you want to be doing. I think that's a huge deal and facilitates a lot of learning. um and it's empowering, I think, in its own way to be able to make those choices for yourself. um, Felt great to me. I'd never been in a setting like that.
Hmm. Yeah, there's some of my friends teach in some of the schools around San Francisco, and a lot of them are kind of implementing a learning style that's more like that,
Oh
actually.
wow, that's really
Yeah. Yeah, so there are like all different kinds of chairs. Some move, some are still, that the kids can sit in. They can always just sit on the floor. There's
that's
like
amazing.
the little cubbies that like if kids feel like they're getting kind of overstimulated, they can go hang out there or they can excuse themselves and like go sit in the hallway for a little bit.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, and there a lot of actually the programming is based on like mindfulness and
Wow.
contemporary neuroscience. So that's what I think kind of gave them the permission to yeah, to allow kids to do things that just help them, like, take better care of themselves, regulate themselves better. And then that makes it easier for them to learn because they're not distracted by, yeah, signals that their bodies are sending them, right? Like
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
uncomfortable or you're hungry or you're like
Mm-hmm.
stimulated. Like, let's take care of that. And then your brain will be calmer and you can learn.
Yeah, absolutely.
It seems obvious, but I think people are afraid that if they do that, then like the learning environment is going to be disrupted all the time. Um,
Yeah,
right.
I
And
think
it's like a distraction to other kids.
totally. I think it's that, and then also probably some sort of like group psychology thing of like not wanting to seem different or like wanting to kind of fit in with what everyone's doing.
Well, yeah, that's true too. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's a whole other topic.
Yeah, we
So
could talk about that too.
yeah, I know we could talk about that. We could talk about training, right? And
What being in a training's like.
yeah, what being in a training is like. Yeah. And I kind of feel like if we talk about it might be fun to bring in a friend who's like a teacher and kind of talk to them about maybe
Like
for
being a trainer.
or no, I was thinking like friends who teach elementary school kids.
Oh yeah, totally. That
If
would be very cool.
because I already started kind of, yeah, I don't know, sharing a bit about that, which was I don't have very much firsthand knowledge, so it might be fun to bring in, yeah, someone
Yeah, I like that.
talk more about learning, good learning environments.
That sounds perfect.
Okay. Thank you, Alex.
Yay. Thank you, Marcia.
It's a pleasure.
We will talk soon.
Yeah, that sounds good. All right. Oh, and thank you everyone for listening. If anyone is listening, we just want to thank
Thank you, anyone,
you.
for listening.